Lucas always had the concept of the light side and the dark side. The dark side is kind of like the chaotic, destructive powers of creation. I mean, when you get like rageful, and you get that anger and you feel
So
powerful.
easy, yeah.
That's kind of like that. You're channeling that energy, as opposed to
And it's easier to slip into that and stay there.
exactly.
But
And
it's
bring
also
yourself
easy
up.
it's to defeat it because of its chaotic
Yeah,
frequency
it's
of
gonna
it.
it's gonna turn on you at some
It's going
point.
to turn on you at some point
You can't
because
control it.
that fear will turn into the fear or anxiety will
Yep.
turn into, oh, I could lose this fight.
Yep.
You know what I mean? As opposed to giving to the force,
Yep. And it's
you
kind
have
of
confidence that you will prevail.
it's kind of like the same concept of there's two emotions, love and fear.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
yeah.
And in the prequels, Yoda says, "Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering." So it's like that.
Snowball, it just
Again,
spirals.
it's that thing. It's like, are
Yeah.
you trusting the energy? Are you with the true source of creation, or are you kind of distorting it? And that's kind of what that dark side is.
For you, you could be like a Yoda, let's say. So concepts come easy for you when you get it. So when I use things like lesson or light, it's not like you perceive it differently or it's a different word.
Yeah.
But I'm working with like people who are just beginning in that language. People can understand that and grasp that.
Well, people
Right?
I think a lot of people like the idea of good and bad, though.
Well, I don't see light and darkness as good or bad.
But
I see it
but that's
as
how it's perceived.
gotcha.
And that's why I don't use those terms because they're kind of synonymous for good and evil.
See, I don't see it
But
like
it's a way
that.
to
Decipher
teach
the
it,
difference.
decipher the
So
difference.
for me, it's more like yin and yang.
Yeah.
Like it's not necessarily good or bad, right or wrong.
And I agree.
It
That's
just
how I
is.
see
It's
it.
a push. One is more like an introvert and an extrovert. One's gonna push you,
Yeah.
and one's gonna nurture you. So when you are in the,
I don't know. I think one will make you grow.
I think the both will make you grow.
I don't know if technically the dark side will make you grow. Or does it make you
Heck
grow?
yeah, it does. So think about like when
Make
you
you grow
have.
positive?
Yeah.
How does it make you
well,
grow?
so think about like when I was wanted to leave that corporate job, let's say,
Right.
the pain, which would be like the dark,
Suffering.
was
No,
what
that's-
forced me to find something else.
But that's suffering. That's not the
Well-
dark side being anger and hate.
Well, I
that's
wasn't
that's what
suffering.
that's what the dark side in the movie
Oh.
feeds off. And the stronger this hate and anger, the more
Oh, I see.
strong the dark force is.
Yeah, I think we're talking about two different
But
concepts.
that leads to suffering, too.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we need some degree of pain. We don't have to suffer. There's some degree of being uncomfortable. But the more you hold on, the worse it's going to get, right? But I find that it's being uncomfortable which forces a change, which gives you an opportunity to grow.
What's the expression? Pain is mandatory, but suffering is, your choice. Something to that extent.
Never heard that, but
It's
we
something
talked
like
about
that.
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the same
Because-
thing as how you
because
deal with situations.
That's why I don't see like the darkness, because again, everybody's degree of pain is different, right? Like how much weight do you have to gain before you change your habits? How unhappy do you have to be in a relationship, a friendship, or a marriage before you make change? Everybody's degree is different, right? So I feel like the dark side is actually a push, but again, if you're not careful, you can get stuck there. Right?
Oh, I think-
anger, negativity, but
It's a cycle, a negative cycle people get into.
I do see it as an opportunity to grow, though. So my perspective now is like, okay, when something bad happens or I'm uncomfortable, I try to see what the perspective is or what I can learn from it to make it less painful.
Well, you're showing
Right?
yourself love then.
Yeah.
And by turning it around, you're putting love around it.
Yeah.
By saying, all right, wait a minute, let me step back and look at this. And that now you're learning from it.
Yeah.
It's
So it
interesting.
pops up and then you can shift it. Like it's all malleable. Like it's all like, for me, it's like clay. Okay, so you're given this form, this matter of an experience, and how do you work with it? Do you get more angry at it, more frustrated, feel more hopeless by it? Like Luke with not being able to lift it up, and because he didn't see instant results, or he was trying, let's say,
Yeah, he was trying.
he gave up. He
Lack
just
of
gave
patience,
up.
right.
Yeah. And Yoda,
It was lack of belief. That's what
Yeah,
it was. He didn't think he
exactly.
could do it.
and Yoda, for me, from watching that, it looked like Yoda didn't even have to believe. It just is. It's just like the sun is hot,
Well,
right?
he's a master, and he made it look
Yeah.
effortless. But you know, it takes time to get to
Yeah.
that level, and that's what I was trying to teach him to.
And I think this is where a lot of people get frustrated or fall off the map because they're looking to the Yodas who make it so effortlessly. And they forget that Yoda had a process.
Yeah, it's a work in
right?
progress.
He was 900 years old, so
Yeah.
Right? And so again, instantly it makes you feel inept or you're doing something wrong or you're missing it, right? But I think this is what for me, I'm kind of like the middleman,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like saying, oh yeah, I get that and I can do this, but I also understand what it's like to be there, and these are the process steps, keep going, right? In that space. So like
You're
when I'm
guiding
working with people.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, when you talk about the darkness, it can be a stagnant place of energy. And I think it's self-fulfilling. People get impatient, they get angry, instead of looking at, you know, a positive attitude. It's the same thing as a positive attitude, negative attitude. You're feeding into one side or the other. So whichever one you feed is going to grow.
Well, people, I also too feel need to feel alive in some way, and a lot of times,
that's what's interesting with the Star Wars movies, because that was the downfall of the Jedi, is that they didn't allow emotion and they didn't allow for that part. And which I think where the new movies are going is they're actually kind of seems like they're kind of doing a blending of, you know, the right way to do it is to embrace
Yeah.
the full
Emotion.
fullness of what it is.
because what happens is I think what people happens when they forget how to feel alive through joy, happiness, adventure, play, laughter, fun, freedom. I find that
Even fear. You can
Yeah.
actually feel alive through fear.
No, people do Skype.
But I
mean,
think-
they do.
But I think, yeah, that's true. But
They're
I
thrill
think people,
junkies.
but I think like the power and the ego, I think people tend to learn how to feel alive by suppressing or pushing people down or hurting in some way. You know, like we feed off of somebody's like jealousy, right?
Hate.
Like, and then somebody falls, then it's like, oh, you know, they can't wait to feed that, right? I think this is when we see that on the news and the media. It's like people have fallen into that trap of feeling alive through negativity.
Well, they usually what people thrive on when they thrive on the suffering of others, it's
Yeah.
the same thing that they're lacking.
Yes.
You know, so
the
when
mirror.
they feel not powerful, they try to make others feel not powerful, and
Yes.
it makes them feel better. But instead of bringing people up, you know, they try to push people down because they're stuck here.
Yeah. So to keep it. So would you consider that darkness?
I would.
Like you don't use the
A
word
piece of it.
light and dark. So what would you consider that? People who are feeding off of that.
Well, what I would consider that a false notion, because you actually can't take someone's power away, but you can convince them that you can. And that's where our society is right now, is
Yeah.
you've got 99% of the planet that feel powerless, and then the 1%.
But can you manipulate someone's?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what they're
That's what they're doing.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what the media is doing and everything, like
Yeah, and
social media, news. I mean,
Well, they know that because it's psychologically it works.
they're making it appear that the world is chaos and disarray,
Yeah.
and it's really not.
No, it's
It's just natural disarray and chaos,
but I
as it
think,
always is.
you know, the world's always going to go through the cycles, because there's always going to be people at different levels
Yeah.
of their advancement of what their beliefs are, and you have to allow for all of that as a part of a co-creative experience, is allowing people that, you know, that want peace to have peace, but you also have to allow the people that want war, they're going to be able to create
Yeah.
war, but you don't have to be a part of it,
Right.
you know, and it's just, it's
We share a space, so that's part of this whole learning planet. You know,
yeah,
otherwise it'd be dull, I guess.
well, but it's also just
It's like the
you share a
seesaw.
planet, but your beliefs can keep you away from something, you know. So if you believe that, you know, you can't be hurt by somebody, then you're going to keep yourself away from that situation. The problem I think a lot of people have is they believe in coincidence. They believe in, you know, anything could happen to them at any time. They believe that, you know, they believe in the chaos of the universe.
Yeah.
instead of seeing the very intricate dance of what's actually happening
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
And don't you think that in order for people to really wake up, they've got to feel that degree of uncomfortableness or pain? So in my field, I find that like pain and suffering, again, they don't have to, but pain and suffering is what opens people up consciously, right? Because on some level they're searching for more. So as a medium, you know, you see tragic loss, but yet it opens up the family to like more, or to search out and look for answers. And so in a way, it's through that suffering that you can grow.
Yeah. I think that you don't need the suffering and the pain, though, to get there. I think that it's a tool. If you have it, it can be something that kind of shocks people out of where they are. You know, where people get to the point where they suffer so much
Yeah.
that it's like, I need to find a way out.
Yes. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I think this is what God's trying to teach. Like, it doesn't have to be, or that energy, or the force. Like, it doesn't have to be. The energy's all around, the intricacies. And the thing is, you know what I find too? It doesn't change. The principles stay the same, the concepts stay the same, the laws stay the same. And if you can learn that, then
Well, what happens if you have a pre-life plan that comes in, and part of that is suffering or pain, dealing with that to help people's vibration rise or lower or whatever.
I don't think anyone comes in planning to suffer.
no, I don't either.
Really?
Yeah. I think that people that come in with certain life challenges aren't necessarily suffering in the way you would think, you know?
You mean it's a byproduct? I mean, if someone comes in and their job, their plan is to die at a young age of a disease, and it's going to affect the family, that might go on, and one of the siblings might become a doctor and help other people. So maybe that's the whole plan or something like that. But while that person comes in, that person knows that there's going to be a lot of suffering going on, not only for them, but for their loved ones.
Well, I don't know if
I
they
don't know
necessarily
that-
suffer.
I mean, and I still don't necessarily know how much I believe is pre-planned and that, so I'm going to put that out there now. But let's go with the notion that pre-planning is something that happens on to a specific degree, like you're saying, where someone would actually plan to come in to have this disease to
Play
have
out.
this effect in the future.
Right.
Let's say that this is the fact for this conversation. I don't think you can say that just because they have pain that they're suffering.
Oh, I
you
agree.
know?
Yeah.
And I think that's where it comes down to. Though, like you said, the pain is going to be a part of your life. Suffering doesn't have to be.
Well, that's the old saying, like I was saying before. I think it's easy to say, but I don't necessarily know how practical it is. I mean, I think you really have to be wise and
I think a lot of
to
it-
be able to do that.
I
What
think
if-
you'd be surprised that a lot of kids that have serious diseases don't suffer as much as adults do with them.
I agree, and for some reason I was thinking about that today.
And I don't have any evidence to support that other just the feeling.
No, but it seems like kids can bounce back a lot quicker than adults can when tragedy or certain things happen. They seem more resilient.
They lack the life experience of the fear that adults have as they've grown, right? They've seen lots of, so you think about law of attraction, and they talk about, I forget who I was listening to. They talk about I forget who it was. Oh, I think it was at the Tony Robbins event. Joseph, who was speaking, his mother was diagnosed with an illness, and he asked the doctor not to tell, because she was like, let's say stage 4. He asked the doctor not to tell his mother that she was going to die, or she could die. He said, tell her she has cancer, tell her what's going on with her, but do not tell her she's going to die. And the doctor, went along with that, and the mother ended up, because he said, we'll get her on this, and we'll do this, and we'll do that. And that was one of the things he was, so I think with children, because let's say they don't have the concept of like death and what that means, eliminating some of that, you still have this belief, like I can still live, and I can still thrive, and I can still, Joel Osteen's mother, the same thing. she had stage 4 cancer, and she refused to believe, let's say, she was going to die, and she used the power of prayer and scripture and her family, and she's still alive today, and she's in her 80s. I think this might be like 30 years later, you know. So you wonder, like with children, if, you know, because they still have the innocence, they're still dialed into source in some way, that they don't have the knowing life experience like us, like, I have cancer and this is going to be painful and this is what's going to happen, because we've seen people around us have that experience. You wonder if the kids...
I think you're tapping into a very important message for people, is that suffering is a trained and practiced belief that people have.
Mm-hmm.
And that suffering is something that's learned throughout life experience. And I think that what you're saying kind of points to that, where, so here's, if somebody's suffering a lot, and now you know that it's a trained experience that you're having, something that you've learned, well, now you know that you can turn it around, and that is something that can be unlearned, and that you can retrain your body and your mind to be something different.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing for healing.
It is.
for people to understand that suffering isn't an absolute, and that you can really turn
Shift
it around.
And even with law of attraction, for me, I keep finding stories and people who defy the odds. You know what I mean? So, because I'm a believer that you can shift and you can change. And again, like, I have a lot of imprints of fear and worry from my upbringing, right? So for the last 10 years doing this work personally, I've tried to shift that. I actually do risky things like firewalking and jumping out of a plane to, I think, on some level, to defy.
Walking's not that risky. So is it risky or not?
Well, you can burn your feet with hot coals.
No.
So, in a way, yes. Try it. We'll see. Why don't you try it? We'll set
I
it.
don't want to try. You told me it was risky.
Well, it can be, because you can burn your feet,
Yeah.
you know. So, you know, you want to be in like a state for it, right? Same thing when you're skydiving. I mean, you prepare yourself for it. And I think those are just kind of my ways to just push the envelope to help me with fear.
Now,
So,
did you notice that you said that you have imprints of fear?
yes, I know I've grown up.
But what I wanted to catch you saying that, because I
Yes.
wanted to point out the fact that you're taking ownership that you have this fear.
Gotcha. Well, it's underlying, so it's underlining, and it is there. It's something I have to be conscious of and shift it when it pops up.
Or is it a belief that you have that this is something that...
Let me think about
What
that.
happens if it's
think about
connected
that.
to a past life? Would that come through?
I can. I think. It's
Well,
more,
I think it's
that's more of a
well.
belief
Think
or-
about like conditioning, right? You don't realize it until it pops up, right? So I believe that I'm risky, and you know I can move through that stuff. But I have to say, every once in a while, I have an experience that definitely relates to my upbringing, and I'm like, oh, that's still there, and then I sit with it.
So is it still there though, or is it just a similar experience, and you're taking ownership of the fact that in the past you had it? So you're saying it's still there. Because what I think is actually happening is you're having an experience that's similar, and it's reminding you.
It's
the
association.
past.
And what?
Yeah.
You're making the association, and
Yeah.
you're saying, "Oh, I still have this fear," instead of
Gotcha.
saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, I've had this fear before, and I get through it. Okay, last time,
Yeah.
so I'm okay
Well, that's
now."
what I do. I sit with it and try to say, hey, wait a minute. Like, I don't need this anymore. It's not.
Well, that's the brain learning through association.
Exactly.
You know, and it's just the computer or the brain trying to figure out how to, and that's the easiest way.
I think
even
one
though it
of
might
the-
affect you
Yeah.
in a different way, unless you consciously are
That's
aware
it.
of it.
That's exactly it. I think that's one of the things. I'm conscious of it. Because when you're on that hamster wheel and you're not conscious of it, you're creating the same things over and over again, right? So I recognize it, but I refuse to own it. That's important.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. If you like what you watched, please subscribe on YouTube and like us on Facebook. And check out our website at alwaysconsiderthesource.com.
Hey, if you want us to come out to your location and do a live setup, we'd love to do that. Continue to send in your questions, and we look forward to interacting with you.
And remember, always consider the source.